welcome back to my channel. I can never get this angling right because I always seem to chop my head off that bit. Yeah. Excuse the eyes. I feel like I look like I've been punched in the face. I haven't. Just trying something different. Not sure if a different is good in this case. Today I'm here to talk to you again about Orphan Black season 5 because literally I need somewhere to vent. Turns out I got something right. I know, I was so proud of the fact that I got something right. This week I didn't go to the audition, didn't feel well. I think it's partly due to stress. I'm hoping to reschedule it though, so you know. What else? About a month till I go to NYT, which is half scary, half exciting at the same time. And also I've just figured out that Orphan Black will finish the day before I go to NYT, which is always good because then I can have an emotional breakdown on the Sunday and be prepared on the Monday. Yes, because I don't know how I'd cope if it was on the week after. I think literally the emotional breakdown might have to be put on hold. Also, I'm thinking of doing a few videos for Orphan Black after it's finished, like a sort of end of series, like a bit like I did for season 4 with my top 24 moments. Couldn't pick 10 or I couldn't pick 15 for this series, and then like a whole sort of best moments award show, because hopefully, well, I have got a ticket to the Orphan Black convention which is happening in England, so should hopefully tie in nicely. That is also if I have any money I'm going to NYT, which means living in London for about 3 weeks. So I don't know how much money I'll have left. Also, I'm thinking of taking the camera because, you know, nice shots of London. Also to film videos maybe. I don't know. Depends if I'm too tired. Because I might not be tired enough to not do something, but I might be tired enough to not go outside the door. So rambling on. But this week's episode really good. I feel like it's now at the point where everything is ramping up to the big finale, and that, you know, everything is making sense. Everything that everybody's saying, like every sort of loose ends are sort of being tied up, so that's quite good. And this week's episode is called Manacled Slim. I do have a few news things because they were really interesting for me to read. Like there was this one on, what was it on? Let me have a look. What does it mean? What man has done to man? So in the episode they quote a poem, parts of a poem by Wordsworth? It's Wordsworth, yeah, not Wordsmith. And so it's sort of on the eugenic and sort of, is it inevitable that things like this will happen, and sort of the sciencey part of it, which really fascinates me. So I'm gonna put that in the thing below because I find it fascinating. Maybe I should open the curtain. It might make me look less like I've been punched in the face, maybe. Yeah, sort of. So let's get started. Also, I did get emotional at the end of this. I didn't cry because, like, seriously, I won't cry. Like, oh, we all know what happened with MK. Cried in that, but it was upsetting, and I was so sort of like that. I was just like, I had to take a few minutes. So we start off with Crystal. She has her own YouTube channel, and you know, that is something I would watch. I would watch her YouTube channel with her friend Brie. And I love it. They're like, we love getting comments from you guys who can't really speak English. I'm like, it's almost like they're sort of taking the mickey out of people who do like beauty videos. Being like, yeah, I love you guys. As I let no hate or anything, but you know, that's what people say. Big Cosmetic, who are Big Cosmetic, and I love how we see, and they're sort of like, she's been poisoned because her hair starts falling out when they take it out of the rollers. I love how it's like almost like a parody of, you know, those videos where like people are curling their hair on YouTube and then they just take it out and the hair goes with it. I love watching them because they're so funny. It's a bit like, ha ha ha, never would I do that to my hair, you know. It's just so funny. And we see Art and Scott are watching it because they're in front of him being like, we need your help, she's been poisoned. And Crystal's like, I have white hot friends. And then Crystal says, she's been poisoned by Big Cosmetics. What about that is confusing. I love Crystal. I can't say she's like my favourite, but I do love Crystal. Out of all the sort of minor clones, I do love her. I think she's great. I said this to my parents, and I think I've said this before in one of these videos. I think she is the one the one clone I can sort of say, hand on heart, I don't think they'd kill. I don't. They do, shocker. Don't know how I'd feel, but I feel like she's the one person that you can safely say she will probably be alive at the end of the series, because she will somehow survived. Kira is sick. We go to Sarah, Kira and Mrs S, and she's sick. Irish. she's not going to diet today because she threw up on Dr. Frontenac's shoes. And then we see Mrs. S being like, sorry about that, you know, the ipecac should only make you throw up 3 times and then you should be fine, because they don't want her to go to diet because of what Delphine told her. And then we go back to the island. Cosima is still locked up. Mud comes in and she has to wear a self-punishment bell. Her self-punishment, like a cowbell. And we find out she's from Seattle. And then Cosima's trying to sort of tell her, you know, they're planning to fertilise my niece's egg. She's 8 years old. I put them in surrogate and make them have her children. Like, let her out so she can go warn them. And it's a bit like, well, I would let Cosima out if I knew they were doing that to my niece. They were gonna fertilise my niece's eggs and put them into surrogates to experiment on them like Yanis. I would let her out. Ma does not. I mean, I'd let her out if they were doing it to any little girl. Never mind just a niece. That sounds really a bit like I don't care for my nieces and nephews. I do. I'm just trying to... You'd let them out if it was anybody's child. And it's nice to see that they have at least gotten rid of Yanis's body, because, you know, that would not be nice in that cell for Cosima. And then we go back to Sarah and Mrs. S and Kira, and we find out they faked. So we know they faked it because Delphine warned them to keep Kira away from diet. And they know about the gene Lin28A. They know it's all to do with Lin28A. And I'd like to say Kira is smart, because she said, maybe that's the gene that makes my mouse's skin grow back. It's a bit like, yes, why are we not listening to this child? She speaks words of wisdom at times. Sometimes it's a bit diva. Didn't want to go with Sarah, which, you know, if they'd gone in the first place, would have solved everything. But, you know, she comes through. It's a bit like Crystal. They get to where they need to be. They know what they're talking about. One thing I would like to see, I'd just like to see Delphine, Felix and Adele in Geneva. That would be one rendezvous that I would like to see. And we find out that they've made some leeway in their sort of money trail of Neolution, and that the Neolution sort of subsidiaries have acquired companies in healthcare and other sectors. And so Sarah knows now that Mrs. S is working with Delphine, but not exactly what they're working on per se, which is a bit weird. I'm not going to sort of be like, oh, because I'm assuming we will find out as we near the final episode. I could cry that this is like 6 episodes, 4 more episodes, and they're sort of talking about who's the source that led her to Dr. Cody. She's sort of like, I have many sources, and it's a bit like, well, you are going to regret letting Cody out now. Well, later in the episode you're going to think, geez, I really should not have done that. And then we go to Art, and he's like, Sarah, on the phone to Sarah, being like, are you near the laptop? Can we FaceTime? And they FaceTime with Crystal, and I just love them two interacting. Sarah and Crystal. It's just like 2 completely polar opposite people, but I think they're more alike than they sort of care to tell. And Crystal says, is she actually necessary? Because she's so rude every single time. It's just like, oh, I love that. It's just the lines she comes out with. I can't portray how funny they are. They are funny on TV. And then we find out about this Leonard Sip, who owns Blue Zone Cosmetics, which is, this is telling Sarah, is one of the acquisitions of Dyad. I just like to say Len Sip. I can't tell whether it's meant to be like a pun on Lemsip. You know, the drink Lemsip that people have when they've got a cold. Lemsip, Lemsip. It kept going through my mind. I wanted to call him Lemsip. And then Bree says, nobody ghosts Crystal, to which I love Scott's response, which is, it's difficult at first, but you get used to it eventually. I just love Scott's words of wisdom. I just love the fact Scott's in this episode. Yay! I love Scott. And then we go to Dyad. Mr. Frontenac's like, well, Kira's not coming in today. She's not feeling well. So Rachel sort of says, oh well, we'll have to sort of tomorrow. And it's sort of almost like Rachel is I find Rachel, I can't quite put my finger on Rachel, but I don't think she's ruthless, but I think she's not bothered either. It's hard to tell. It's almost like she's not doing it for herself, and so when there's no pressure, like when we see when PT rings Rachel later in the episode, she's more proactive. I sort of know what I think, but I don't. sort of hard. And then we go to Susan and PT on the island, and Susan, I love how they did this in this sort of sly way that if you did not listen to this conversation deeply enough, you would not have got what they were saying, if that makes sense. Like, it could have gone completely over people's head. And she says, your mask is slipping, Percival. She saw through you. And she's like, you're having dialysis? What's wrong with your kidneys? And he says, you may be dying, but I'm here to make sure it's not fatal. And then Petey's like, do you remember who I am? And she's like, of course. So, John, of course I remember. So his name is John, not Percival. I was going to say PT, but it's Percival. But no one else does. If you think we don't need the myth, you've gone mad. And he's like, was I mad when I began all this? And she's like, knew you were magnetic if a meddling student. I think the next line that he says is kind of a reference to last week's, where Cosima was saying he likes to use women and pit women against each other. He says, and you were brilliant, but it was 1962 and you were a woman, and what I couldn't get with brains, I bought. And Susan's like, by fortune and fiction, that's how the patriarchy works. John, what is your point? And he says, your fictions, your lies, your crafty little workarounds, all to push your crazy ideals, but you're not the only scientist I brought, were you? And in walks Virginia Cody. It's like, I kind of squealed at first because I was like, oh, this is going to be dramatic. Now I've watched the episode, I'm a bit like, well, this is where it all went wrong. Let's just say, this is where it all went wrong. And she makes Susan look humane, because I was, it was on that article about, what man is done to man, saying that although Cosima is a lot more humane than Susan walks that very fine line of cruel and sort of humane. Do you know what I mean? And let me read what it said. Take Susan Duncan, a character who would have been easy to treat as merely another mad scientist. Instead, we witness her 11th hour realization that attempting to control human evolution requires playing along with a patriarchy that will always have ulterior motives. As she admits to Ira, using a word we have already highlighted this season, I sacrificed everything for Neolution, people I loved, perhaps even my own soul. But now, Ira, it is time to bring it all down. Her attempt to murder Westmoreland is one of the season's most artfully edited sequences. Oh, that's not. Here is a scientist who is convinced herself that the end justified the means, that she could make decisions for the Sesters and countless others without their consent, but hold on to some thin shred of morality on the view that it was all for the greater good. She thought herself the link between nature and the human soul, the bridge between the clinical and the humane, that Westmoreland mocked in the previous episode. As Susan acknowledges, though, her role hasn't worked out. Is all too evident what man has made of man. That is where there's something else. It was a very good article, and I think if you like the science behind Orphan Black and stuff, it'll be quite interesting to read. And it's true, Susan does walk that very thin line between her morality and everything else. And there are moments, like last week, there were moments where you see her and she's not as bad as PT and Cody. Cody wanted to she wanted to sterilize women with the caster clone, jump forward human evolution. As Susan says, I disapprove of genocide. Like, so in that sense, she does have some boundaries and stuff that I don't think PT and Cody have, and I think that is why what happens in this episode happens, and she's the one to sort of take a stand. And now I'm slightly rooting for Mud. Like, yes, go on, Mud. It's sort of like, this is what PT likes to do. He likes to pit women against each other. He pitted Cody and Susan against each other in that first moment when they worked together, and he sent her off to do caster and sent her off to do leader, because although it is sort of true when he says, you know, you need all viewpoints to sort of have an equal balance, and he's like, been a long time since three of us were in this room together, and they're all gonna work together, which I don't see ending well. And then we go back to Sarah, Mrs. S, and Sarah's like, why would they be getting into cosmetics? Like, why is Neolution and Dyad getting into cosmetics? And Mrs. S says it's a $700 billion industry. It's got more research dollars than cancer, apparently. And it's all connected to Lin 28A. I think we can all assume now that's the end goal. Lin 28A. Something to do with it. And then Sarah says, did Crystal just fall ass backwards into something big again? And it's a bit like, yes, because that is what Crystal does. But and Sarah's gonna go undercover as Crystal again to make Leonard I was gonna call him Len Sip. tell them more. And we go to Kira, sort of in the next room. She's sort of saying, you know, I've given the island a new name, Wonderland, and it's a bit like, Wonderland, it ain't, Kira. And then we go back to the island, back to Cosima, and she meets Cody for the first time. She's sort of like, I'm just taking inventory, you know, used to be my lab. I thought a bit like, you are so creepy. I don't particularly like you, which is a good thing. Like what I said about that Maddie cop, good acting. I don't hate the actors or anything. The characters, just like Ferdinand, I don't particularly like Ferdinand anymore. And I'd like to see where he ran off to. I'd like someone to get revenge on him. I find it funny how she doesn't get that Cosima, she's very confused by Cosima doesn't see that, you know, it's almost like in that article, them exploiting the clones and sort of Kira and Helena's baby is inevitable. Like, they will, and that she could be helping them if she'd just sort of switch her viewpoint a little. And I love Cosima when she's like, frankly, I think you're all crazy. I think you're all too insane. And then we go to Susan and Ira, and Ira's glitching, and I'm so sad because I loved Ira's snark. I loved his snark comments. Oh, I really wanted him to be sort of in the final battle with, like, not final battle, but like be there to sort of snark comments with Rachel. I secretly love Ira. And Susan says he's losing his grip. He's going to destroy everything. And Ira having Cody back, sort of interested in that side of his history because he was a caster clone and he was taken from it, and sort of interested in who he would have been, who he is, and I guess this sort of genetic default that they all have. And Susan smacks him and he starts glitching again. And she says, I should have killed her when I had the chance. And Ira says, you're not a murderer. And Susan says, no, I'm everything but, and that may have to change. I mean, I do love Susan because, like, she knows what Cody is doing is wrong. That's not the right type of science. It's quite fascinating because really Susan's experiment was the most humane of them all. I mean, I'm not justifying it or anything, but when you look at it, the clone program wasn't too. It just involved monitoring. It was really letting them lead their lives, really. I mean, it's all about, like, who owns your body and everything, but in that sense, it's sort of, when you think about what they're now doing, that was quite tame. Obviously the Brightborn thing is a whole different story, and I can't quite get over that, and I would, like, that is just like, but like, it could have been, like, the clone thing could have been more. And I don't particularly think she agrees with manipulating Kira's mutation. I'm not, like, I don't think she agrees with that. And she says, you know, the only person who can help you, Ira, with your cure is Cosima, and she's down in the basement. I think she sort of sees herself in Cosima before she got into all the Mercury illusion business, because Cosima does have her morals, she does have her ethics, she does, and she believes what she believes, if that makes sense. It's just gonna be a lot of me saying, does that make sense? I think it makes sense. And Ira's like, well, I'm gonna need to get close to her then. And he's gonna go investigate Cody. And then we go back to Bree and Scott and Crystal. I was gonna call her Cosima. And Crystal is trying to sneak out, and she's sort of like, Bree, flirt with Scott. And Bree says, are you a doctor? And Scott's like, no, but I dropped out of a doctorate. Oh God. And then we go back to the island. We see the villagers having a funeral for the guy that died last week, but I can't remember his name. I'll probably insert it here when it comes back to me in a few hours. And they're sort of realising it's not all it seems. And then Ira sort of goes and sees Cody in the medical hut. I'm like, why? When she was sterilising women, would you let her be in charge of the medical thing? Like, I know you don't have Delphina at the minute, but seriously, that's a serious drop down. And we see she's getting blood from a child. Another thing I read that someone sort of noticed is that all the kids seem to be mixed race, that sort of were either donating blood or dying. And then Ira asks Cody, are there any casters left? And I'm like, yeah, is there any casters left? She doesn't answer. But she says she's close to a cure, and I'm like, I wouldn't trust her as far as I could throw her, really. And then we go back to Sarah and Art, and they're like, okay, ready. And Scott's rung them to say, you know, Crystal's left, and they're ringing Crystal to be like, you know, you shouldn't have left. We were gonna do it. So she's now gonna do it. She's like, I've got a surveillance kit and an earpiece. You're the backup. I'm the mark. I think it was. And it's like, she's thought of of everything. And I love that we see Len Sip. He's Tom Cullen, Tatiana's boyfriend. I think that's cute. I think that's funny. It's a bit like, I just want to know what that was like to film. I bet that was a whirl. I bet that was hilarious. I love how it's her in the car just like watching them make out. It's a bit like, oh. And then Sarah's like, you need to ask him the questions, like, why did he sell his company to Dyad? And it's like, don't make it obvious. And then she just goes and says, you sold your company to Dyad? And it's a bit like, oh, Crystal, only you could get away with that. It says they product test on bunnies and humans, which is one of Crystal's one lines that you do not cry. And I love her style of investigating, it's great. And then we go to Brie and Scott, and we find out she hasn't been poisoned, but it's sort of like an allergic reaction. And we find out she stole a sample product from Len's. And we go back to Art and Sarah, and they're sort of saying, I have faith in you, Crystal, you know, just keep it in your pants and try and get answers. And then Crystal's like, Dyad is a bad corporate citizen. And then we see Sarah being like, well done. And she's like, thanks. And then she's like, you know, you liked my vlog. And he's like, I liked your vlog. And she's like, I know, he's only using me. She goes to the bathroom for a minute. She's like, you didn't even like my vlog. And then we go back to Susan and Ira, and Ira is telling Susan what he saw in that medical art. And Susan's like, Cody was collecting blood from a healthy child. And Ira's like, yes, I saw many liters to be processed. And we find out he's doing parabiosis, which is when you take a healthy person, a child's blood, and give it to someone old. So, sort of young blood for old veins. And she says he'll do anything to prolong his pitiful life. Highly suspect science. And then we see her say, we could use this to stop him. And what is it? It's a needle and a vial of morphine. I'd just like to say, has anyone not learned about needles? Don't leave them with people. Did we not learn nothing from Helena? But Ira just wants to leave with Susan and get to the boathouse, but she's sort of saying no, he and Cody are too dangerous together. She was never close to a cure. And then says, the best mind for your cure is in the basement. And she says, I sacrificed everything I had for Neolution, people I loved, perhaps even my own soul. But now, Ira, it's time to bring it all down. It's like, yes, Susan, I sort of thought you were on our side. You're a bit murky, but I want to say your heart's in a good place. Moments of redemption for you. And then she gives Ira an envelope to hold on to, which has some vital evidence in it in case they need it. And then we go back to Crystal, who is peeing, and then I'm gonna kick him in the balls. And I was like, no, you will not kick him in the balls. And I'm like, you sound so serious. And they let her know about Brie stealing some face cream, and to which Crystal's like, oh my god, she's such a klepto. Which is left in her floral makeup bag, which unfortunately she has like 9 of them. And the one it is in is out with Len Sip. And Sarah's like, he's at the door. And she's like, I know he's at the door because he's knocking and everything. And then she proceeds to take the earpiece out. And then she opens the door and she's like, what's in it? Because he's like, you don't. He says it's experimental, it's a prototype. And then he says the killer line of, how stupid are you? To which Crystal then kicks him in the balls. We don't know, don't insult Crystal on her intelligence or that you hurt animals, that you test on animals. Just like to say, if ever I needed self-defense, I know who I would go to. I know who I'd want on my side. And then she sort of tackles him to the ground, which is great. And she's sort of saying what's in it. And he says, the cream is a dermal delivery system and it's what Dyad wants. It's the next big thing in regenerative therapy. And Sarah's like, overhearing this, and she's like, they could put anything in it, and like something to do with Lin 28A. And then he says they tested it and it made the mice's hair fall out. No, it was bunnies. That's it, bunnies. Which is another big no for Crystal. You say that. And she puts the cream, which makes the hair fall out, on his beard. My parents were laughing at that bit. It was like, yes, I know, Crystal is hilarious. I love Crystal. And then we go back to the island, and Mud is sort of walking around. Then she hears sort of a commotion. We find out Aisha died. Aisha died? And then she sort of talks to this islander called Anna, and like, I thought she was getting better. And she says, where is the founder now? Why is he silent? He did this to her. It's like, yes, Islanders, you're getting angry. Go march in there. And then we see Mud come tell Cosima about Aisha. And Cosima tells her that they have to leave. And Mud's like, nobody wants me back home. They don't miss me. And Ira comes in and sort of like, I'm sure that's not true. And sort of tells them about the plan and Susan's plan to take them down. But they need Mud and Cosima to help. And he says, we need you to tell us when he's doing his treatments. He's doing parabiosis, which obviously puts Cosima's science knowledge. And he's saying, She says he's bleeding kids too, and it's obvious Mud doesn't know that is not very well informed about it. She's saying he's just doing plasma. It's just plasma. To which Cosima explains to her, Mud parabiosis means he's processing young blood and transfusing it. And we finally find out why Mud is so loyal to PT. He saved her life when she was a drug user. She stole from her parents and ruined everything. She said she couldn't even OD properly. And she was, I don't like the word vegetable, but I'm just gonna say it because it was part of the line. She was a vegetable for like 6 months, and then she woke up in his house. I don't like the word vegetable, but I think she means in a coma, so it's sort of, you are a vegetable. And I'm not saying that's a more suitable term. It's hard to explain. And then Cosima's like, now what, you're his fool, Mud? Are you here by choice? Because I'm not here by choice. And I find that fascinating. Mud has almost got this complex that because he saved her life, she now has to do everything he says and sort of owes him that. And even if he's wrong or right, she will follow him. I'm just like, Mud, I just want to shake you and be like, Mud. And she just wants to say she's sorry to her parents. And then we go to Rachel, who's getting a phone call from PT. That's what I was going to say about Rachel. She believes the myth. She believes the myth of PT. When she finds out that it's just a myth, not real, I'd like to see Rachel's reaction. That sort of she was swindled, and he's sort of asking, why is Kira not at Dyad? And Rachel's like, well, I'll take care of it. So then we go to PT and Mud, who's setting up his sort of transfusion system, and Susan comes in, and so Mud sort of drops the transfusion bag to know Susan's gonna do her plan, and she injects it while Mud's sort of fiddling around with the needle in his arm so he can't see Susan, and injects it with morphine, which I think I'm not entirely sure what was in the bag. I know it was morphine and this like yellow liquid which will kill him. And then Susan is also sort of saying, why didn't you tell me you were using parabiosis? And Peter's like, because I knew you'd have your qualm, blood of the innocent. And Susan's like, bloodletting won't harm the child. It won't harm, I suppose, at least until the Lin28A mutation is ready. And PT says to Mud that you can remove your bell now and forgive yourself. And I think that's the thing Mud hasn't been able to do. She can't forgive herself, and I think that's also why she's loyal to PT. She can't forgive herself, and when she does, she will not need him anymore, that she won't believe him anymore. And I think it's almost he's playing on the fact that she believes her parents hate her and that she doesn't forgive herself. And then we go back to the basement, and as Ira is letting Cosima out, he starts to glitch again, and he doesn't think he'll make it to the boat, but he wants Cosima to take Susan with him, which is what makes what happens next so sad. And Cosima says, don't worry, we'll all get off the island together. And he gives Cosima the envelope, which she reads and which holds something important in it, and she looks at it as well. And then we go back to Kira and Mrs. S, and it's Rachel at the door, and she's there to take Kira for a sleepover, even though sleepovers were not agreed. And I love what Mrs. S says to Rachel next has really stuck with me, and it's like what I said, I think Rachel will have the biggest fall from grace. PT will just drop her, or she will find out that everything that PT has said is a lie. Rachel, look at me. There will come a day when you need us. And I do believe that. I do believe there will be a day Rachel will need them, and I don't know whether they'll be there for her. And then we see Cosima. She's escaped. She grabs the kill from the medical shed and all that sort of bits, and is confronted by the villagers who start to try and sort of grab her things and sort of say, you're not leaving, you can't take Charlotte, and that she's working with PT and causing this, and she just wants to leave with Charlotte. And I love her speech. She says, yeah, you're right to protect the children from him. Westmoreland is not 170, okay? To which Cosima gets thing out of the envelope, and it's a picture of PT and Susan in 1967, and PT is a young man, which theoretically proves he couldn't have been that man in the picture. That's him and Susan Duncan in 1967. Look, he's a young man. I'm sorry, but the fountain isn't real. I know that's really hard to hear because he's deceived me too. My family, scientists, governments, military all over the world. He used you all. He's experimenting on your children. Aisha's dead because of him. Would you please let me leave? Which they do, because they're sort of all sandwiched. Cosima uses that time to quickly gather her things, grab Charlotte and run, and they head to the boathouse. And the villagers do the best thing. They destroy everything, which I'd like to know how they're going to get off the island now since Cosima took the boat. But they start a revolt, and I'm so ashamed they did not go into the house. I'm hoping they do. And they start tearing the camp apart. And then we go back to PT and Susan, and PT is sort of out of it nearly, and he says to her, I heard 1,000 blended notes, which is so the following lines from Wordsworth. It's not the whole thing, it's just sort of segments taken out. I'm gonna include the whole thing in the thing below if you want to read it. It says, to her fair works did nature link this human soul that through me ran. If this belief from heaven be sent, if such is nature holy plan, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. It's like a perfect segment. Because what has man made of man? What have they made of these people? It's just a bit like, Susan, you really should have used that moment to run and not recite a poem, because then Cody storms in with Mud and she stops the transfusion and says she was trying to kill you, she's also got a gun, and then she says I was trying to save us all, and it's a bit like, Mud, why? Mud, why? And then we see Cosima and Charlotte have made it to the boat, and Charlotte's a bit like, we're on a boat, can you drive? And I knew finding out about Cosima's parents would help, because she says I grew up on boats, and it's a bit like, yes you did, you should know how to drive a boat. Thing, you know, they've got other things like oil, gas, oars, maps, compasses, but they're waiting for Susan, Ira and Mud. And then we go to see Ira, and his nose starts to bleed, and we see sort of a glimpse of Susan. She sat in a rocking chair, in a wheelchair, with the same drip that PT had, only it's halfway down. And then we sort of tracking shot, and we see that Susan is sort of tied down, hooked up to the same drip that PT was, and she's dead. Like, dead. No, she was stabbed. This time she's really dead. And we see Ira drop to his knees, and his nose starts to bleed full force, and he sort of dies by her side. It's sort of really sad, because I sort of think out of all three of them, Susan would have been the one to die, because like she was the one that realised what they were doing was wrong. But I'd like to think Cody and PT, someone will have a revenge on them and, you know, will suffer more. I'd like to know what Rachel will do when she finds out about her mum and Ira, because although Susan and Rachel didn't have that great relationship, it's a bit like when Duncan died. Although she wasn't that close with him, she was distraught when he died. And I think also because it will have been PT who did it, might affect it more. It wasn't sort of Rachel, and sort of she didn't have a say in it. I didn't expect how sad that scene would be. And then we go back to Cosima and Charlotte, and they've sort of given up waiting, and sort of to have a bit of a happier note, they now drive off in the boat, and I'm like, yes, Cosima! Yes, you've escaped. Hallelujah. Can we just say, yes, finally. And then we go to PT, overseeing the island going to ruin, and they're shouting, revival is a lie, and get the children out. I love the juxtaposition, because as we hear people saying, revival is a lie, get the children, sort of destroy everything, we see Mud in all of this pick up the photo of Susan and PT in 1967, and you just, the reveal that everything that she thought and sort of her reasoning behind everything is a lie. And then we go to end the episode with PT watching his empire burn. So I have 2 points. I want to know what's going to happen with Rachel. I just think Rachel, I can see lots of things in mind. You know, you can see lots of storylines coming. Not like lots of storylines because we don't have a lot of episodes left, but like a lot of conclusions. And also, I'd like to say, I think Mud, okay, I'm going to put it out there, I hope Mud kills PT. It's a bit like when we had that scene between Duco and Mrs. S and Art. Art had very much good reason to kill Duco, but he didn't have reason enough. Mud is the Mrs. S. I think, although I'd like to think Rachel would kill him, Mud is there and she has a big reason why, or at least I hope she kills Cody. Yeah. I think Mud has reasons because he's ruined her life. She thought he was saving her and he took her away from her family, and I do hope she does get some sort of happy ending. She gets to see her parents again. I would like that. So that was episode 6. It's a big episode. I can't wait for next week, because guess who's back? Gracie! Like, does that mean Mark's back as well, or has he died? Also, progress on that, I found other shows. I watched Finding Carter. That was really good. But then it's only got 2 seasons, and on this season finale episode of season 2, it ended on such a cliffhanger that I thought, oh my god, why did you leave it there? So many, like, that would have made so many great episodes. I had so many storylines in mind that it could have gone, so why did you cancel it? Also, Switch to Birth, it's a very good show. It features ASL, and it even has an episode where American Sign Language is the only language it spoke. Only thing, because I did start watching it before I started watching Orphan Black, actually, on Sky, because I have Sky Television, but then it didn't have all the seasons, and it's finished. I know, I like to pick shows that I've already finished or are finishing. I have no luck. So I watched it first and I found myself getting gradually annoyed with the Kenish parents. I can't remember what their names are. Catherine and John, and also Daphne. And now I've started watching it from the beginning because I reminded myself what happened, because they've got all the seasons on Sky. I'm like, thank you, Sky. I found myself really being annoyed by Daphne. And I know people should say, oh, she's deaf, she's disabled, you know, you should like the disabled character. That is not always the case. That is not always the case, you know. It's like not every disabled person is friends with each other. It's not like an interconnecting thing. No, she just winds me up. I'm just like, I really get irritated by her. And just sort of things she says, and she's so selfish and self-absorbed almost. Like, she thinks whenever someone does something, it's against her, and sort of like she sort of gets annoyed when her parents that she was brought up by but not her real parents start actually hanging around with her, like their real daughter. And it's a bit like, well, you've been hanging around with her parents forever, you live with them, so why shouldn't she want to know who her birth parents are? It's a bit like, it just irritates me. But I like Bae. I like Bae. She's such a good character. Daphne just, irritates me so much. But I hope you enjoyed this. I'm not sure what's going to happen about the final episode because I don't know whether I'm going to film it when I'm at NYT or not. I'm not sure. Or before. I'm not sure. But we'll see. Although I don't have to worry about it yet because 4 more episodes. Don't wish it away already. Thanks for watching. Also, I hope to have this up earlier because last time it was such a disaster because each time I tried to upload it, it said no, no, no. It kept freezing. So hopefully it should work again this time and I will try and do it early. Thanks for watching. Bye.